My name is Bree, that's spelled B-R-E-I, thank you so much. Today's film commentary is about the film titled A Ghost Story. It was released in 2017, rated R with a runtime of 1 hour and 32 minutes. The director's name is David Lowery. I recently went to the theaters, AMC specifically, after getting a sort of membership deal with A24, which I'm a member of, and was able to see this movie for basically free. I think there was maybe some small fee, but it was a pretty good deal. I've actually never seen this film, but the reviews on IMDb and Letterboxd look good, so I wanted to give it a chance, and of course I would love the chance to experience it in theater always with any film, and so I went ahead and watched it, and I did not regret it. Some themes that came up when I was watching the film and some thoughts that it made me have in terms of creating a discussion for everyone to discuss the film and in constructive ways. We don't often consider grief from the perspective of the dead. That was like my main key thought, theme, topic of discussion in my head the whole time. And so basically this film follows a couple who seem to have some tension going on about internal things in their relationship that we don't really get very clear understandings of until much later in the film. And ultimately, one of the people in that couple, the male, he dies in looks like a car accident pretty close to his house. And so the female lead basically is grieving him through a lot of the film, and she's in this home, in a home that he really loved, but for her it just sort of feels like, I don't want to say a cage, but you can tell like the lighting is cool and low key, and she's sad and she's on the floor, and there are these really long takes that obviously probably could have been cut but are very intentional about feeling that grief and discomfort and sadness in the moment a lot of times in the film. Weird things going on in the house before the male lead dies, and still seeing how much they intensely love each other even when they are arguing about normal relationship stuff. But then there's still stuff, again, that I said in the beginning we didn't get context on until a lot later. And then ultimately after he dies, we see him haunting the house while the female lead is grieving him and slowly trying to get back to some version of normal. And this version of his ghost is very much a stereotypical ideal of a ghost in like a white sheet, and you can see the wear and tear on that sheet as the years go by. And there's even a house next door where there's also another ghost, but that ghost is on some sort of a floral sheet, so maybe that is context to the personality or the life that that person once lived. And he creates somewhat of a weird friendship with that ghost. Although the ghost never really speaks, we just see dialogue on the screen, and they somewhat communicate, and you'll see that visually when you watch, or if you watch the film. And it's really sad, and it's a slow burn, but I do think it's worth it. I just feel like people should know what they're going to see when they go into the film. And ultimately, the female lead does start to move on. You see the ghost getting upset when she brings a guy home before she tells him to leave. He gets sort of upset about that, the ghost. And then you see new families move in when she's moved out, and he doesn't take that well. You see the seasons changing, you see the future arriving, you see the house being no longer taken care of, almost like it was abandoned, like all these situations. And so I'm just giving more context to the summary of the film, but there's obviously a lot of things that go on that are a lot more heartfelt than I can explain verbally. But I also feel like there's so much going on with the framing of the film and the camera work and the long takes and the lighting that really brings everything in this film together. The framing and the transitions, I think, are really interestingly shot, wide frames. There's like a curved frame, and it's very stationed on the screen, and you'll see that right away. A lot of the time The camera is really intentional about moving into a scene, unless about the characters moving into the shot. Sometimes it happens, but a lot of the time it just seems very specific. Times when there's grief and sadness, the lighting being cooler and sort of sad instead of intimate and warm. It just sort of depends on what part we're at in the film with the relationship of the couple. The use of silence in the film was very deafening. There are moments where there are characters that speak, and I think there's like one group of people when they're having a party where there's the most dialogue, and there's even monologues, it feels like. But for most of the scenes and the film, it is very silent. And I mean, that makes sense. We are following this ghost who is grieving the loss of his life that he no longer has. The lighting also creates some sort of emotion within me when I watch it, and the smooth cuts of transitions show up too when it's not taking the longest take ever. The film felt realistic, relatable, and the director really aced the scope of human interaction and intimacy, and the mundaneness. Death as a theme, using the sort of stereotypical visual of the ghost, which I mentioned before, in a sad and weary manner, that when truly broken down is a bundle of emotion of the last stages of humanity within the soul from the perspective of the dead. And then the weird sort of metaphors or symbolism of the home being an object that was tangible that this ghost wanted to stay connected to, as well as his female lover, and the attachment of people. Although I guess one could say that the being of his female lover is a tangible person. She isn't in one spot in the way that the home is. She moves and he couldn't go with her. So I really do think that the home is what grounded him, although it seems like he was waiting on her. So that's an interesting scope, that he couldn't follow her. And life having its normal ups and downs, tragedy, but always moving in time. And this essence of that in the film is very strong. I'm going to move on to my quote segment. Okay, so this was one of the monologues by the house guest in that party scene in the film. We build our legacy piece by piece, and maybe the whole world will remember you, or maybe just a couple of people, but you do what you can to make sure you're still around after you're gone. When I was little and we used to move all the time, I'd write these notes and I would fold them up really small and I would hide them. What'd they say? They're just things I wanted to remember, so that if I ever wanted to go back, there'd be a piece of me there waiting. And I wanted to take a few seconds before I say goodbye to remind everyone that is subscribed to me or is considering subscribing to me that I'm creating a community that talks about storytelling, whether that's music, shows, film, but usually film because that's what I love the most, in a constructive and meaningful way. I really want to create an authentic, safe space within my community, and I'm not creating a platform just for people to harass me online and to bully me and try to gaslight me with their sarcasm or snide remarks. Opinions are opinions, and unfortunately the world is cruel, but I'm not going to create a space for people to treat me like crap. So just keep that in mind, that if you want to leave comments, totally do that, and I totally understand, like, my opinion isn't Bible, it's not the end of the road. It's just that if we're going to talk about things, we're going to create discussions and we're going to create real constructive commentary about things. And if you're going to not agree with me or not bring up something that is just like fun discussion and conversations and agree to disagree, then maybe this just isn't the community for you. And you can go create your own platform and create the safe space or whatever space you want for yourself, or you can go and enjoy another creator. So I just wanted to leave that as a reminder. And this is for those who know who they are. Thank you.